This podcast is a member of the Place to Be Nation family. Visit us at placetobenation.com, the only place to be in your pop culture world.
Place to Be Nation, welcome back to PTBN's NBA Team Podcast. We are doing our Gone Fishing anthology where we talk about all 30, for now, NBA teams. We'll have more. I'm sure those other two are going to suck too, but we'll get to those in a few years. Anyways, I'm Andrew Reich. I'm joined by Adam Murray. Adam, are you looking forward to the two extra teams that we're going to get from Vegas and Seattle that are going to suck too when we do these in later years?
Oh, it's gonna be fun because
here's the thing. This is not the NFL. Expansion teams suck for years. I don't think people understand that.
Well, we'll get into that again with our expansion episode.
That'll be exciting.
Because it'll be fun because when we get to, even if we look at these bad teams, you got choices to make, like who do you save, who do you not protect and whatnot. But
and obviously, because you're adding two teams in the league, the depth is not as good as you think it is. So you're not getting the best.
But just quickly for expansion teams, your job is to be bad because your job is to get as high picks for the next couple of years to build your team. Yeah. You don't want to just have a mediocre team off the bat because they're going to get old and you're going to be.
And speaking of those teams, I think that's a whole good lot of what we're going to be talking about on this episode here. The lottery teams, basically the basement.
Okay, with the exception of Philly, who just. Injuries.
They deep sixed it because of injuries with Embiid, Paul George being
same
a podcaster.
Thing as New Orleans, those two teams. Once injuries hit, but for the most part, we're looking at Utah, Washington, Charlotte, Brooklyn. They all knew from day one we're already going to start on the bottom.
Toronto was on the fringe. Toronto was one of those teams that teased you with their talent, and then they made some moves that might not leave them there. Yeah.
We'll get, but Toronto had injuries off the bat, literally. What was it?
Emmanuel quickly got hurt in the first fucking game, right?
Yeah, game one, and then everybody got injured for the most part, and you're not good. You're just tweeners. You're too good to be at the bottom, especially with Washington and Charlotte and Brooklyn all trying to be worse than you. And then you're nowhere near as good as the Atlantas and Chicago.
So what you're saying is you were out tanked, is what you're saying.
Kind of. But anywho, let's get into it. This is the worst of the worst. This is the day one. We're not going to even try.
Man.
Who do we got?
The first one is going to be the Utah Jazz. Adam, I don't even have to go through their record by record. I did want to say this one. In the months of March and April, they were 2-21. 2-21.
That's about
Hideous.
They're bad, and they were attempting.
Will Hardy has been known as actually a pretty good X's and O's coach. He got that reputation when he had a really bad roster after they traded away Mitchell and Rudy, and they actually wound up with a decent record, and Markkanen was an all-star. He finally caved in to Danny Ainge's tanking way of thinking and said, all right, screw it. Let's just mess around with the lineups. We'll just play a lot of Johnny Juzang and Bryce Sensabaugh. He was high on Taylor Hendricks, but he broke his leg at the very beginning of the season.
Game. So
yeah, it was a mess.
There's a fine line between the art of the tanking and what Utah is doing. Walker Kessler, is he a centerpiece? Well, he's available. You want to give me 2 first for him? Is he a cornerstone? You had 3 first-round picks last year, and I think a couple, 2 or 3 before the year before that. What are you doing keeping Jordan Clarkson and
Keontae George? Some people hate him because they think he's an inefficient player. I kind of like Keontae George.
I was going to say Jordan Clarkson. Keontae George took a major step back. You have Sexton as well. What are these guys? You drafted Isaiah Collier. He fell to you at 29th. Why are you keeping Sexton around? You like Filipowski and Kessler. Then you got Hendricks and Collins and Markkanen. They all can't play together. Why do you have all these big men who can't play? Why do you have all these log jams? You're a bad team. You're playing all these young guys a ton of minutes because
they have tons of cap room. They're below the cap.
But why are you trying to
Here's
trade your...
here's the funny thing though. They're not at the floor though because they gave that extension in the offseason, like a veteran max extension, basically to Markkanen.
Yeah, because Markkanen's like, I don't want. What are you doing? Okay, we'll pay you a ton for this year to sort of phone it in. Well, Markkanen's numbers went down. Yeah, because everybody just doubled him because he was the only player worth matching up
Well,
against.
also because they gave him that the 5-year extension, he was still trade eligible, but it was going to be tougher for teams to bite on it because of the extra years.
With Utah, it seems to be it was a Cooper Flagg or bust mission for them.
Very much so.
It's
You know what's funny about that salary? Their 5th highest paid player is KJ Martin, and I think he was just added at the deadline as a dump. So
he was a salary dump trade, which that's all they became. And it's like I said, it's a Cooper or bust, because if you don't get Cooper, where does anyone else fit in this logjam roster?
you would have to do like with the next best thing that you get in that draft, which Utah in their history has not done a poor job of. They've kind of had to settle for not having the number 1 pick. Like one year they didn't have the number 1 pick and they got Darren Williams. He wound up being very good. They've but that was obviously that was many years ago. I don't really know what Danny Ainge's way of thinking is. Some people are looking at it as Boston strategies and trying to say, oh, he's going to copy that. I don't think so. I think what it is that if he doesn't get the number 1 pick, I can see him just trading out of it again, to be honest.
We've had the past 2 years with Markkanen, like, he's our cornerstone. What do you want to give me for him? People have stopped kind of trading with Utah. You're not worth our time if you're just going to haggle us for every little thing. Either you want to do the trade or you don't. And this roster they've built, who's a Collier? Yes,
Markkanen is still a very good player.
But do you expect
John
to see him on the
Collins has a
roster in 3
player
years?
option, but the player option is only 20 mil, so that actually is a movable salary. I can see Collins finally getting moved.
It's the most logical choice because he doesn't fit on this roster, but are they going to have unreasonable demands for them? I don't know.
I think Kessler actually can be a cornerstone at the 5 for pretty much any team, even a playoff team.
Putting these players, all the players, they always say, yeah, it gets to you when you hear your name in the rumors. Yeah, it gets to you. It just seems like needlessly, why are you putting him in trade talks? Either just make him untouchable, and we want him for the year. Don't be like,
well, that's what I'm saying. If I'm Danny Ainge, I would make Kessler untouchable, period.
But he hasn't with anybody, and it's just players hear it, and I mean, like I said, it's Cooper or bust for them, and if they get him, they get him. If not, like you said, your options are trade down. It doesn't really give you much hope if you're the fan base, this is just gonna keep perpetually stalling for a while.
Yeah. And there's not a lot of free agents for them. They can actually just keep everybody. Sensabaugh still on rookie money. Mikhailiuk is still there. Juzang signed a small-time extension. Filipowski had signed a 3-year deal when he was a second-round pick, I believe. So everybody can be basically stay put. But knowing Trader Dan, he's going to probably make a move or two. It wouldn't shock me at all. I don't see the same team. I can definitely tell you that. There's going to definitely be movement there. And there's going to be a player that winds up landing there because some team is trying to get rid of a salary. That's possible too.
And moving on, speaking of the art of tanking and how it should be done.
Oh, Brian Keefe's Washington Wizards. Is that who you're talking about? This is
what you do. You just say, I got 3 first-round picks, or I got all these young guys. I'm going to play all these young guys 30 minutes. Mm-hmm. I know they're going to suck, but Bub Carrington, he's nothing special, but I'm going to play him over.
This is what the process actually is when Sam Presti. Here's what you do. You stockpile the picks, but once you use them, you play them. That's what it is.
And that's what even Utah when they make mistakes, done.
Even when Bub Carrington and Keyshawn George and AJ Johnson, who they wound up getting in, a steal from Milwaukee, just play them and see how good they are,
Yeah. Like I said, Bub Carrington, is he a cornerstone guy? I don't see him.
No, but he can be an NBA starting point guard.
He could be he's a solid NBA player, but is he going to be like an elite top 3 point guard in the league?
No, I don't see that.
Either, but I'm going to play him over Malcolm Brogdon, We
I
got,
can see Alex Sarr being an all-star in future years. I might eat my words on that one.
but being all defense, yeah, the kid can't shoot and he had the worst summer league of all time. Yeah, but you know what he does? He rebounds and he plays defense. Okay,
After the All-Star break, he looked like he reminded me of Brandon Miller at the end of his first Charlotte year, where you could just see it. Oh, now he's starting to actually make shots. Now he's starting to rebound and block shots.
yeah,
Like
once
I
they
could see the
start
light
getting
going
it,
off. Hmm.
that's what you want to see. You want to see development with your young players. Did we see that in Utah? Do you see anybody like, Cody Williams to, we said Keyshawn George took a step back last year. These
Yeah.
guys, yeah, you're taking your bumps, but you're getting your minutes. That's how you
And
learn.
they don't have to do the bargain basement stuff because they're at the cap, and the reason why is because they had the contract of Malcolm Brogdon. He's actually going to be a free agent now, and they still have some money from
You got
Marcus Smart and the Jordan Poole
you got Chris
contract.
Middleton's contract there, so you have big money
Yep.
people to match salaries, and
And just
Marcus
stockpile picks and
Marcus
use the
Smart was like,
picks.
Marcus Smart is doing what the veteran you're supposed to do. Yeah, I'm helping out these kids. I'm showing them how to do. After the games, I'm being a veteran, knowing I'm here for
I
the team. I'm
was
here for basketball.
I was a fan of the Kyle Kuzma era in Washington, even though nobody really cared about it. But I think it was time for a separation. We'll see how
Nobody
Kuzma
cared,
works out.
including Kuzma. It's just
Well,
like,
I
I'm
think
here. I got a title. I
no,
got a
but
ring of
right.
life here.
But I felt like he contributed at times. He had a really down start to the year. He wound up being traded to Milwaukee. The thing about Koulibaly, he's got promise. He was like the leader in minutes per game. The problem was that once they traded Kuzma, Koulibaly had injuries. So you didn't really get to see him play at
But he
max.
developed
Uh,
as well, and that's all you want to see. Is good. Looks like he'd be very
Kispert
good.
is Kispert signed an extension, but he is basically a sharpshooter, which is fine. Sadiq Bey was signed for MLE, but he didn't play at all because he had I think he tore his Achilles
He
at the
tore his
end of the
Achilles.
regular
He's
season
out for the
the year
year, and
before. Yeah.
yeah, take a nice flyer on him because this team. This is how you tank. You get your players in. You get the minutes. You have them get better. You don't get better by sitting at the end of the bench, cheering
Yeah.
on everything, and getting
They
AJ Johnson for
that
nothing.
was he got him I think it was in the Kuzma deal. Like that was just I'm not saying AJ Johnson's like the next like Chris Middleton, like when the Bucks picked him up for nothing for Detroit and he wound up a superstar, but he averaged 9 points a game
I mean,
as a traded rookie, you
with
know?
first round picks, they're just all lottery tickets, and it's just a complete cheap money flyer. And yeah, let's
Hmm.
put him in the mix, and it's better than Johnny Davis and
You've got an intriguing
Baldwin.
bargain basement 3-point shooter in Justin Champagny. The other one is Julian. I think he's in San Antonio. Tristan Vukcevic actually played a lot. And Colby Jones, I don't know where I think they got him in the Jonas Valanciunas deal. They got some guys that they can kind of just throw out there in deals if they wanted to do it. If they get Flagg, I think they might be in a good spot down
Oh,
the
if they
stretch.
get flagged, they'll be ecstatic because he fits right in on that roster. However, if you get anybody, if they slide down a couple picks, you get Fears. Yeah, he has a higher upside than
Trey
Carrington.
Johnson from Texas, like people
Trey
like that,
Johnson, you
right?
could, Jordan Poole is not going to be there for, he's not going to be there 3 years from
What do
now.
you think of Poole as a top end player? I thought as a point guard he actually played better than he did in his ever as a point guard.
Well, once you stop the knucklehead plays, he always had talent. You don't
Hmm.
get paid that contract for being not good. He's
I do like watching him get hot on some random night and just say it's a pool party. It's a pool party. He averaged 3.5 threes a game. The thing for them, they're gonna obviously timing wise, they're in a very good position in terms of having money, but not being so far like Detroit was last year, so far under the cap that you're kind of forced to spend it. They're not in that position yet. They will be in 2026, but for now they're not. It really, I hate to kind of say to be continued. It really depends on how they do with the 25 draft and what kind of player they get.
but.
That's going to be a big thing.
With the draft, like I said, with the lottery, it's not. It's not. Cooper or bust. They can probably take anybody, and then
They can
they'll
take a,
be
and I agree with you, and they can take a 5 because I don't think Sar has to play the 5. I think he can play the 4.
yeah. They have versatility. That's what you do. This is how you tank. Just
Still, from a regular season standpoint, I mean, just the worst. God
yeah.
awful team. They had the whole month of November. They lost. They did not win a game in the month of November. Awful.
But you expect that going into it. It's not players who don't want to play. It's just like Brooklyn after when that got broken up. It's like, yeah, we know these guys aren't talented. We know there's nothing on this team, but they're playing and they're playing hard. They're not giving up.
Mm-hmm.
Always good to see. Um, Sort of moving to the other side of the spectrum. We got Charlotte, who was
Yeah.
just. It's hard to develop like a good, consistent product when your star player is just always going to be injured. And
LaMelo Ball, I think, was going to win the scoring title before his injury. Like, he was averaging almost 30 points a game.
it's hard. It's so hard to tell with all the injuries. Is your team bad? Is your team
I think the
judge
team
anything?
I think the team is incomplete. I still, to this day, Adam, don't understand the Miles Bridges extension. I understood it for Bridges. You get the 7% incremental year-to-year increase to stay home. I get it. I think he was thinking, I'll sign this deal now. I'll get traded eventually, but they didn't trade him, and I never even heard his name on the market. Grant Williams got hurt immediately. I'm not saying Grant Williams is this awesome missing piece, but he averaged
He
double-digit
was a
points per
starter.
game.
You had Trey
hmm
Mann, who bet on himself, didn't sign a
Brandon Miller
deal.
got a shoulder injury, I believe, and he was done for the year. Brandon Miller in his second year was on his way. He was averaging 21 points a game.
So you have everybody at some point getting injured. If your starting five can't play
The
together,
Mark Williams trade fiasco was a mess.
it really was. And then, well, he put up great numbers when after the yeah, but he also didn't play defense after the trade
And I
deadline.
don't think it was Charlotte's fault. I think Charlotte actually kind of backed themselves into keeping Williams, which was better. Because I actually like Williams.
Yes and no, but Charlotte needs shooting. So that's why, sort of, in the Cooper Flagg front, if they get Cooper, well, you got Miller, and you have to then ship out Bridges to move Cooper in. But
Correct. I agree with that.
and kind of, if you do that, do you have to ship out Ball to change the culture of this team?
Yeah. From a lineup standpoint, Charles Lee was the new coach. He came from, I believe, Boston. Their defense was definitely better than their offense. Their offense was really bad. But he had this weird stretch where, like, he liked Trey Mann a lot and played him a lot. Then he didn't play him at all. Then they got Nurkic in exchange for Nick Richards, and Nurkic played a lot because Mark Williams was on the trade block and not on the trade block. Cody Martin was, you know, I don't know what happened with him. I mean, they traded him, but I don't even remember him playing that often. He loved Josh Green. I saw Josh Green play a lot down in
Because
garbage
there was
time down
no, but he also said this team's not taking it seriously, and Charles,
Yeah.
he's trying, and I guess maybe they want to try to play for him. It's just I don't. The culture there is they don't know how to. Maybe I mean when Grant Williams is one of your veteran leadership guys,
hmm
that's never a good sign. Also, whoever they get this year, they can't miss in the draft because the previous regime, that whole couple years ago when
Cup
you
check.
traded
Yeah.
Jalen Duren to the Knicks, who then traded to Detroit, and then you get Mark Williams, night complete miss, and then you
Total
took
miss.
Tijon Saloon over Zealous, which is
Yeah.
like
Nick
maybe
Smith
Patel.
Jr. Nick Smith Jr. might wind up being a good player. I don't think they drafted this guy. I think they picked him up as like a summer league guy or something. But Musa Diabate might actually wind up
He was a
in.
two-way player who got
He might
promoted, and
wind up on their roster like down the stretch. Is what
he
I'm saying.
got a regular deal throughout the year, and he has been the
Yeah.
one bright spot about it. So like I said, on the Cooper Flag front, it might be better if they miss out on Flag because then you'll have to start shipping out lots of players.
Yeah, I would
Whereas
actually get somebody like a VJ Edgecombe. I'd get somebody like a wing. I think a wing would
they
be
need
perfect
they
for them.
need a straight up 3-point shooter because they don't have any on this team.
Yeah, they
Um,
definitely need. I mean, their defense is ahead of their offense under Charles Lee. They're definitely gonna need to get a little bit of an offensive boost, and that's weird to say when you have a 20-point 20-point per game guy in Brandon Miller and a guy who almost averaged 30 points a game in LaMelo Ball. Ball is incredibly talented. Nobody doubts it. He's an engaging personality. He averages 7.5 assists a game. He's just hurt all the time. He's got the ankle issues, just like his brother Lonzo did. So it's just something that you just have to live with. It's almost a Joel Embiid level type of thing where you're just going to have to expect them to miss at least 20 games every year.
And kind of just look at the future. Like, Charlotte's not going to be good for the next 2-3 years. So is it worth even keeping Ball around knowing you're not going to be good?
It depends on the haul you can get if you put him on the market.
I don't know, but okay.
I could probably, if you had to do it, if you really had to stretch it out, I could probably get 4 first rounders out of LaMelo Ball in a deal.
Moving on.
Mm-hmm.
I will. We are going to your New Orleans Pelicans. Just injuries decimated for him. You kind of went all in on DeJounte Murray.
It was now or never this year, and it was never, because the DeJounte Murray deal happened. He broke his hand like in the very beginning, the first game of the season, and by the time he came back, they were already kind of hovering around like they had in the month of November they were 2-13. In the month of December they were 1-12. Like
they were already done.
Hideous. They were hideous.
And then he got injured again, and who knows when he's coming back.
Zion. He did his same thing. I think he played less than 50 games again, and he looked great when he was healthy. 24.5 points, 7 rebounds, 5 assists, over 5 free throws a game. He looked great when he played. And when he was in street clothes, he wasn't really, which was more than half of the time. It just feels like a disappointment. This is a guy who, when he's healthy, he's great, but he's healthy less than half of the time. So is that a great return on investment if you make that guy your star player? I would say in today's NBA, because of how much they incentivize having to play as many games as possible at a young age, I would say no, they did not get the return on investment on Zion as a number 1 pick.
You fire your GM.
Correct.
Because he wanted to fire the coach.
Yes.
And the ownership said no.
They bring in Joe Dumars, who is from he played at McNeese, so I guess he's local. Just a very classic. It's just one of those like, hey, is this a guy who ran an NBA organization? Yes. Okay, let's go with him because he's not gonna skip town for the next place. If I were New Orleans, I would have just hired Sam Presti's top assistant. That's what I would have done.
What technically didn't they in Troy Weaver?
Yeah, but he was I get what you're saying, but that was
it's an old
when they were tanking. Yeah.
Troy Weaver, great college evaluator, doesn't know how to put together a cohesion team, but the players he drafted were good. Just they couldn't be played together. Yeah, and that was sort of his downfall in Detroit. And free agency, he wasn't. But as far as a college eye, very good. So I'm just going to defer to you on what the Pelican. Is it Cooper or bust? Can you?
It's not Cooper. It's not Cooper or bust. I don't think if they get him, that's great. If you get him, then it's very similar to the Anthony Davis situation when they got Zion. When Zion was the de facto number 1 pick, we're like, okay, now you got to move him. And teams are going to be biting at New Orleans because they know they're going to want to move Zion if they know Cooper's coming in. Trey Murphy III is set there. He got his big deal, 4 years, $112 million. That starts next year. I think a big obsession for New Orleans is moving CJ McCollum's last year. And yes, I do think there are teams below the cap that will be willing to take McCollum because he did have moments where he looked great for them. I think he had a 50-point game in the regular season, but it's going to be tough. You're going to have to attach maybe Herb Jones to it or something like that. Brandon Ingram, that ship sailed. They finally shipped him out for a 1st-round pick to Toronto. And then DeJounte.
Pennies on the dollar.
Yeah.
You get a 1st-round pick, which I believe is Indiana's 1st-round pick. So it's going to be
the only bright spot to that for them was that Kelly Olynyk, who they got from the Raptors deal, he actually fit well with Zion Williamson. That was the only bright part.
But Bruce Brown, you can't pay him.
He's going to expire and go. Yeah.
But because you've ran out of money with this roster. Okay. That's
Yves Missy's got potential at center. Jose Alvarado signed a new deal, so he's staying. Hawkins, now or never next year. I'll say that one. They have talent. That's what I'm trying to say, Adam. They have talent, but when you're that close to the tax with that salary, you're going to have to get worse. You're going to have to kind of shed somebody or get pennies on the dollar to trade away McCollum. They might wind up losing Jones because people are going to want Jones because he's only a $15 million a year guy for the next 2 years. People are going to want him. So that there are going to be people calling Joe Dumars. My problem is Willie Green's a bad coach. I just think he's a bad coach. I did not understand this obsession of like, oh, the Suns might hire Willie Green because he was an assistant there. Go to Phoenix. That place is a shithole. Like that place is a mess. I would dare him to go there. I know he'll fail there too. I would have just fired Willie Green and started over with a new coach, but I'm not Gil Benson.
Fair enough. Moving on. Philadelphia. I mean, it's a good thing you win in the offseason, and everyone's like, you had the best offseason ever. And that's why we don't give championships out on the paper, because we all bought into
I
that.
need to know, Adam, how many games these players played between Paul George and Joel Embiid. Jared McCain, I want to say, played less than 30. He looked great to start. Then I think he tore a meniscus, and he was out for a long time. But I want to say Embiid played, 20 games, 30 games? And Paul George, I want to say, played less than 50.
Just decimated by injuries, and really not much you can do if.
Do you think Paul George is washed up? I think he's got one more great year in him if he really motivates himself.
He played only, he played exactly 41 games. And in those 41 games, I don't want to say was ineffective, but all his numbers.
16, 5, and 4.
All his numbers were down. Quentin Grimes only played 28, who's supposed to be.
Dude, Quentin Grimes. That's one I will give Daryl Morey credit for. So Grimes has bounced around in the league already. So he was in, I believe, New York at first. Then he got moved to Detroit, but he had a broken hand, so he didn't shoot the ball well. They dumped him to Dallas in the Tim Hardaway deal. This is where it gets interesting. Dallas dumps him to Philadelphia in exchange for Caleb Martin, who I don't think played a minute there, or he was hurt all the time. Quentin Grimes fucking exploded in garbage time under Nick Nurse.
Dallas shipped him out because he played the I'm going to bet on myself. I don't want to sign a 3-year, $18 million deal like Jaden Hardy did. So that was why he was gone.
He's a restricted free agent, right?
Embiid only played 19 games. Tyrese Maxey only played 52.
Maxey had great numbers and he had great games. The problem is usage-wise, he was in a very tough spot. Like, he had to carry the team most of the time.
Only 2 players. What's the NBA award cutoff? 65, 60?
I think it's 62 or 65.
Okay, so only 2 players played over the 2 players in the team qualified for NBA awards. Can you guess who they are?
One is Yabusele and one is Oubre, right?
No, Oubre played 60. It was Yabusele, who was a great story.
11 and 5. His averages.
Great French, it made the French Olympics. And
he had the big dunk on LeBron in the Paris Olympics. That's where he kind of got the attention.
His career was terrible here. He had to go back to Europe.
He was in Boston and he stunk. Yeah.
He had the Great Olympics and then signed a 1-year.
I'm going to make the guess on the last one. Was it Justin Edwards?
It was Ricky Council IV.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. I mean, I'm not trying to poo-poo on Ricky Council IV. Like, shout out to him for playing the games. Jeff Doughton, they kind of scooped up. Chuma Kiki, they got out of the garbage heap. Adem Bona actually looked okay down the stretch. And they got Jalen Hood-Schifino, who the Lakers had just completely dumped.
But here's the thing. If all you can sum up the season is if Ricky Council played 73 games and he averaged 17 minutes a game, that's not a good sign. So you tie everything to Embiid's leg, and you went down miserably with the ship. And then it's like, well, what do we do with him as that extension hasn't kicked in yet?
He has 4 years. He has 4 years left on a Supermax deal. He has a new Supermax that kicks in 26. So he has what they all like to call the poison pill. So his last year in 2028, 2029 season, he gets paid $69 million. No one will want that deal. Nobody
So
will want that.
no, nobody wants it.
So he's Philly. He's a Sixer for life, whether the Sixers want him or not.
So the overall health sort of closed your window frame. You have no money to re-sign Yabusele and Grimes.
And I wouldn't fire Nick Nurse. I think Nick Nurse is actually a good coach.
Well, you can't fire Nick Nurse because your team was injured. What can you do? It's, well, I gave you this roster. Yeah, but they all got injured. What
they have they have one Deus ex machina, and that's the fact that if they're in the top 5 of the draft, they can keep it. If it goes below that, I think it goes to the Thunder, right?
You have big money in a lot of your positions, like getting, if they get a wing, like, well, you have Maxey there. Like, where is he? You know, where is the guy going to fit? You have Paul George saying, you don't need Cooper Flagg on this team. Well, yeah, because Cooper Flagg plays your position.
Eric Gordon, Kyle Lowry, see you later. I can see him picking up Jared Butler again when he's a free agent. I can see him just signing a new deal for him. Jared McCain had promise. He looked good. He was probably their best 3-point shooter before he got hurt. From a cap standpoint, they're at the tax limit or they're like a little bit below it because of all the money that they swallowed into, the rookie extension for Maxey, what they gave George using bird rights or non-bird rights, and then the Embiid extension. So they're kind of stuck there. They're going to have to hit singles, and Daryl Morey has been known to pick up good players like he did in the trade deadline with Grimes. So you just have to. I hate to say it's just basically rinse repeat. It's all Embiid and George. If they can be healthy, they're good. If they're not, they're done.
So now we're moving on to a team's really in a rock and a hard place. So we're moving on to Brooklyn. You have a team who can't bottom out because you have two teams who are far worse than you.
Also, Jordy Fernandez was too good of a coach. Their defense was actually above average a lot of times.
That's why you overachieved with him. Mm-hmm. And then, well, what do you do? So you add money. Does that put you in the sort of the Chicago, Atlanta play-in territory? Is that your ceiling? Like
they are in the dumping ground territory, because when I'm looking at their salary sheet next year, they have room for days. They only have $80 million in guaranteed salary going into the season. That's because Cam Thomas is a restricted free agent. Now, Cam Thomas had 24. He was averaging 24 points per game before the injury, but he didn't play a lot of games. I want to say he played less than 20 games because he had a hamstring tear. But what it is that as a restricted free agent, I'm assuming the Nets are going to want to keep him.
Well, so like, what do? Do you just say, we'll take a CJ McCollum, give us a pick? Or do you say, all right, Kuminga and Grimes, we're going to sign you to our famous aggressive Brooklyn Nets offer sheet and dare
the team to match it?
So yeah, which route do you go?
I would go with that. I would go with the offer sheet route, where I find my favorite RFAs. Remember, they have their own RFAs that they might want to keep. And Thomas, I mentioned Thomas already, but also Zaire Williams, who played a lot.
Zaire Williams, I don't know if
by the way, he's a restricted free agent with a good cap hold because of the fact that he was a first round pick when he was originally drafted by the Memphis Grizzlies. And the other one is Day'Ron Sharpe.
So that was going to be my next question. What kind of money would you give to Thomas and Sharpe?
Williams, because of his offensive upside, he might get somewhere in the range of 18. For Sharpe, I think he should just go ahead and cave in and take like a 3 for 30 deal, something like that.
3 for 30, you said?
3 for 30 or 3 for 30, 3 for 33, like $11 million above the average salary. See, I think Sharpe's good, but he's not that good.
I sort of pegged Sharpe as the Grant Williams 454 area.
That might be too high for him. You're looking at Noah Clowney going to be restricted down the road.
That's why, but he developed under Fernandez, and Fernandez likes him. That's why I'm like,
and they have so much room, and people are like, how did they get so much room? They picked up Bojan Bogdanovic in the Mikal Bridges deal, I believe, and he's not going like he. I don't think he played a minute that year, and if he did, he barely played. He's going to be unrestricted free agent. D'Angelo Russell they won't keep him. D'Anthony Melton, they picked up in the Dennis Schroeder deal from Golden State. He didn't play a minute. He won't be back. So they had a lot of dead salary that will not be on the books next year.
And then Thomas, I sort of put in the 360 range.
I think Thomas, they'll sign him July 1st. They're going to give him something good. He's a great scorer, man.
The great scorer hasn't done much else, and everybody knows he doesn't do much. That's why I'm like, maybe 360. But
Keon Johnson is pretty cool. Like he's a decent player. I don't know I actually don't know his free agency situation. If I have to assume, because he was a first round pick, he's probably a restricted free agent.
So Brooklyn also has 4 first-round picks. Are they just going to go the Washington route and just draft every player and hope somebody sticks?
I would say so, because they actually have the
spots
and the salary space to pay those people. But they, even Adam, with that, in order to reach the floor, they have to take on a bad salary in return. So someone's going to land there. Now, is it somebody that Jordi Fernandez can turn into a weapon? I would say yes.
That's right. You can easily just say, we'll take Zion.
Right. Zion, that's been a rumor. That's been a rumor for a couple months. Nets as not a dumping ground, but a landing ground for
first. Okay, Phoenix, let's.
And then there's the we're the Big Apple option, and that's Giannis. Now, this is all just high speculation about a superstar who's unhappy at their present place might go there. What about LaMelo Ball?
To Brooklyn?
Correct.
But that doesn't.
They would want the first. They would have to give up some of the firsts for sure.
Yeah, but that's they have the spot to take them, and you can. Well, if we get Kuminga to a RFA that Golden State doesn't sign, and
I'll tell you one more who I think. I'll tell you one more I think would fit really well there. Trae Young.
They get Trae. I mean, they could just go, okay, New Orleans, give us. We'll take. Give us Zion. We'll take McCollum off your books too. Here's 3 of those fourths. And
so to answer your question about will they look very different from they have to, because they're so far under the cap. They have to start adding people. I can also see a similar situation to what happened this past season with Detroit, where you have some decent players, you attach new players to it because you have the room to pay them. And they all just fit seamlessly. They play great defense, and they make a run. That team was playing around with getting into the play-in for a couple of days.
And speaking of a team who will, on the exact opposite, will not look different, we'll wrap up here at Toronto.
By the way, I think this is the only, them and Philadelphia, they're the only ones who are at the tax limit that we're talking about in this group.
This was my first note of them. They're $80,000 below the tax line.
Mm-hmm.
And
we're not talking about last year's tax line. We're talking about the 2026 one, right?
No, this past year they just got into the tax line by $80,000.
So they do have about $17 million in between to get to the new tax limit to spend.
That's a very expensive price point to be that bad of this team. Isn't it?
It is. Now, quickly missed a lot of games. Now, when he got healthy again, he played pretty well. Ingram didn't play a minute. That was a big part of it. The fact that you have a guy who you sign a new deal to around $40 million a year for 3 years, and he didn't play a minute. That's going to be important. I thought Barrett and Barnes looked really good.
Yeah, so you have this very expensive lineup with Quickly, Barrett, Barnes.
Who do you like as the ball handler more for the offense, RJ Barrett or Scotty Barnes? Because they both got triple doubles throughout the season.
RJ Barrett seems to be just going down that Andrew Wiggins. He's just going to score points, but he's not a difference
Andrew
maker.
Wiggins would Adam. Andrew Wiggins wishes in his dreams he could get 5 assists a game, like RJ Barrett did.
I meant, but not a difference maker.
Okay, I can buy that.
Think of him as he's just there getting 20 points, but he's not gonna. You don't play. He's always the third option. Best.
Barnes is a guy who, from a field goal percentage standpoint, it's going down. His 3-point field goal percentage was 26, which is awful. But he's such a weapon both ways. He's a great assist guy. He gets to the line. He does get in foul trouble sometimes. Quickly, we already talked about him a little bit. They got a rebounder in Jakob Poeltl. Poeltl's interesting because he has a player option next summer, and it's going to be well below his value. So he'll probably be able to opt out of that $19 million in 2026. But you got him locked in one more time. The other thing about Masai Ujiri, and this is very well known about him, is that he drafts well. So they were able to get some decent hits. Jamal Shed, Jameson Battle from the two-way market, Jonathan Mogbo. They were able to get decent return of value.
That's the frustrating part. Is Ujiri is a very, by all accounts, weak draft, and you hit not one but three solid singles.
Yeah, I didn't mention Jacoby Walter either. Yeah.
Well, Jacoby Walter, I don't know what he's going to be.
He's a shooter. He reminds me a little bit of Zaire Williams, to be honest.
He's a shooter, but you have Grady Dick, who's above you.
Yeah, Grady Dick's awesome. The problem with Grady Dick, though, is that I think his three-point shooting, he can go up another notch. He can actually be a better three-point shooter.
That's sort of the frustration, is he built this completely expensive top-heavy thing. He's hit solid singles at the bottom. It's like there's no middle ground.
But I think that's the plan. The plan is, okay, I have picks. They were able to, I believe, they had to shed one pick, and that was the pick that Indiana had given him the Pascal Siakam deal. That was a deal that I believe the same first rounder they gave up in the New Orleans deal to get Ingram. But they do still have some extra picks from past deals, so they will be able to add rookie talent to add to the core that they have, which is Quickly, Ingram, Barrett, and Barnes. So that's and Poeltl at the center. So that's kind of your starting five, basically. Chris Boucher is expiring. I don't think they're going to try to retain him. So they're going to have to just let him go. I don't know what they can do in free agency, though. I don't think they can add
That's sort of the whole, like, what can they do in anything? And there's some weird vision, but I don't know what he's planning and what it is. You just have all these guys. Can they even play together? We don't even know, but they're very expensive, and it's hard to
losing Davion Mitchell. That was not a good idea. Maybe he just didn't fit well there.
He didn't fit well there, and he was just a throwaway in there. Plus, they got Abaji, who is there.
He's fine. Ochai Abaji is just fine. Like he's got restricted free agency coming up, not this summer but next summer. It'll be make or miss for him. We'll see how he looks. I don't think he's a bad player. I don't think he's a great player. That's all. That he's a good 3-point shooter. I'll give him that. Orlando Robinson found a little bit of a home. He had been in Miami, and then he kind of wound up in Toronto. And he played okay there. I don't know if he's going to stay there though. They just do a good job of being able to find a decent fit for whatever player that they find. And I think that's a culture type of thing. I think Ochai Abaji does a good job there. Because remember, I don't think their head coach, Darko Rajakovic, is a great coach. I think he's just there to be a coach.
Agreed. But you never know. It's hard to judge, as we said, anything if all your star guys your core can't stay healthy together. You can't have your guys all on the floor together. So is it the coach? Is it the players? We don't know because nobody's had time together.
And let me ask you this. Their best month by far, 10-5, was the month of March. Do you think that's a sign they'll be better next year?
If they could all stay healthy, by default, you'll be better next year.
Yeah. I can see them jumping out of this pretty quickly. They were kind of playing around with the plan anyways. That's why they were the last team. I mean, Toronto is kind of an elementary team. They have a very basic team.
So, all right, with that said, this is obviously, we have the draft lottery coming up. Who's going to win the lottery in your book? Is it going to be a conspiracy theory or is it going to be straightforward?
I can see Brook. I don't know. Is Brooklyn got a shot this year? Are they in the lottery?
Brooklyn is talking about. They're sixth going into it.
I can see Brooklyn jumping in, chance wise, but I see Utah or Washington. I just think they have too many ping pong balls in it. I think it's going to be one of them too. If Utah wins it, that is your. I mean, it's classic Cooper Flagg in Utah. It's too easy,
So
So, but if Washington gets him, that kind of like puts him in a situation that's similar to when they got John Wall 15 years ago, where you're like, all right, this team could actually go far if they put the right pieces together, which they did down eventually with John Wall. And I can see it similar with Washington, where they've been aimless and shitty and bad. And if they land Cooper, now you can kind of get it going finally there.
So we can go conspiracy theory route, and they say they give it to Dallas because they felt bad.
Philadelphia jumps in to save their pick to get it away from Oklahoma City, and in the Harden deal, I think it was. I don't even remember what deal it was. They have so many big deals they wound up in. But I could see them getting in the top 5 to jump in to save the pick, and then they just wind up winning it. We'll know very early because I think Philadelphia, I think the way it works in the lottery is that there's a certain order that it's supposed to go in. And if a team is not there, that means they jumped into the top 3. So
Well, it's
you're going
top
to know very early into the process.
5 now, I believe.
Yeah. So now it's like, somebody's got a shot. I don't
It's
see
going
New
to be
Orleans
like
winning
if
it.
Houston jumps up again and they get a top 3, it's going to be like, come on. If Oklahoma City gets it, people won't be happy. If I think even if San Antonio wins it again, it's going to be like, really, we need to stop having the same team winning twice.
Doesn't Atlanta have an incentive there about the placement of where they are in the lottery? About saving their pick, or they're going to lose no matter what?
Well, Sacramento is the only one. I think they have a 2% chance to keep their pick. Atlanta's pick goes to San Antonio, period.
No matter what. Okay, I had a feeling. And in
Sacramento's
Sacramento with
pick,
Orlando?
Sacramento's pick goes to Atlanta.
Atlanta. Okay.
So I think unless they get number 1 or maybe top 3, it's a very good chance that Atlanta will get Sacramento's pick. Phoenix pick automatically goes to Houston. If it's out of the top 6, Philly's pick goes to Oklahoma City. I think Utah, Washington, Charlotte.
If Oklahoma City gets a fucking lottery pick, that's so unfair.
But with that, it's
you just made a 68 win team better.
But they have to move pieces around.
Yeah, you trade AJ Mitchell and you get nothing in return for him, so he can be a star for the Nets or some shit.
So let's just for sake of argument here, they get Cooper Flagg. Where does he? So you got him, Jalen Williams.
Well, they can't, remember, because if it's number 1, it stays in Philly, right?
But let's just say, for argument's sake, let's say they get Cooper Flagg, they get number 1. Yeah, you got Jalen Williams, who's at that spot.
You trade Chet Holmgren.
That's the thing, is you now have to start breaking up the pieces you have.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and who knows if the new player is going to come in and fit and everything. So the same thing with Houston. They get Cooper Flagg. All right, Tari Eason and Cam Whitmore, you're gone.
Yeah. Jalen Green on his 2+1. You got to start thinking about that.
Yeah, you get VJ Edgecombe. Okay, Jalen Green, we're looking at you now because this kid right here is on your back, and it messes with the chemistry you've built. But I'm sorry, I sort of skipped. You said who was going to win it?
Well, I think it's going to be either Utah or Washington because they have the highest chance because of the tanking. But I think Brooklyn has an outside shot.
All right. I mean, it's not an outside shot. It's just whichever way the conspiracy lottery. Conspiracy, goes, yeah. Dallas gets it. That's the official conspiracy. You
think Nico will be there? At the podium?
Everyone else
they usually do Hall of Fame players or something like that, or
sure.
I know Danny Ainge will be there. Because this is why. Listen, we talked a little bit. We dabbled a little bit into the draft class when we do the March Madness stuff. Cooper, I think, is that level where if you get him, you're getting an awesome NBA player. I'll say that. So there'll be some tension.
I just say if any Western Conference team gets him, it's just going to be like what the hell? Because you have all these.
It's
Eastern
not
Conference
going to
teams.
be Wembanyama level tension. Wembanyama was like, I was on the phone with you literally second to second of who was
Like,
winning
this is
the
going to
lottery.
the West again. Like,
Yeah.
why are we having the West getting all these teams and it's not?
And this, well, it doesn't matter because the Spurs are going to wind up with the Rookie of the Year anyways. You know.
All right. Well, this is the Tanktastic teams.
Yep.
We will be back with more Gone Fishings later. So for Andrew Reich, I'm Adam Murray. Have a good one.
Take care.